Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are excited to have Stephanie Korchynski back with us, joining us here. She's a certified Canadian counselor. Inner Strength Counseling and Wellness is the name of her company, and we can't wait to find out more about the work she's doing and all the mental health services to help you. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Good to know. We're only an hour apart. We're Eastern Standard here in New York, and you're based out of Winnipeg, right?
Yes, correct. So we're Central Standard Time, so it's 8:30 a.m. here.
Beautiful. So for new time listeners and viewers, great. I get to see you here on the Zoomcast as well. Tell us a little bit about what you do as a certified counselor and the types of services you offer.
Yeah, so I have my own private practice. So I'm a mental health therapist here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I provide individual, couples, and youth counseling services. And then, yeah, I utilize a lot of variety of different approaches in order to have a tailored approach to all of my clients. But I usually come from a client-centered approach, ensuring that each client feels very well supported. And then, of course, like they can let me know if, hey, something isn't
Yeah,
working, then we can certainly take a different approach with them, right?
yeah. And can I ask you what your website is, how we can reach out to you?
Yeah, so my website is innerstrengthcw.com, or you can contact me by email, which is innerstrengthcw@gmail.com.
Beautiful. And before we get to the work that you're doing, would you mind just telling us a little bit about what started you here and why you decided to pursue this career in a sense as a therapist? Could you give us a little bit of your background?
Sure, yeah. It honestly, I really just enjoy helping people. I first started off with a career in personal training, so focusing on people's fitness aspects. And I realized that I really like the conversational piece and helping people through more of the deeper levels of fitness and more of that psychological approach. I had also reached out to a therapist previously before. I had a friend that had passed away
Oh,
during a lacrosse game that we were playing together. And honestly, it was one of the best decisions of my life. It really helped me get through that grieving process. And I was able to talk about my feelings in a very non judgmental way. And I got a lot of good coping strategies and techniques.
well, I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your friend, but
Yeah,
happy to
thank
know that
you.
it guided you down this course of getting the help and then realizing, hey, you want to help other people, right? Um,
100%.
yeah, and before you were doing this, could I just ask what other business you were in? I know said you had a few different type of careers beforehand.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so I used to be a personal trainer here in Winnipeg. I also used to sell high-end analytical chemistry equipment. So I first initially took my chemical and bioscience diploma. And so, yeah, I was in territorial sales for a little bit, and then I progressed forward into personal training. But I also, even before counseling, I worked with people with physical and intellectual disabilities. I also worked in our child and family welfare system here, and I actually progressed into child protection. And then once I graduated with my master's, went directly into individual, youth, and couples counseling.
Got it. Well, we're excited to have you here. And I just want to point out, we're opening up the phone lines. They're open 631-307-4010. If you have any questions as we continue, 631-307-4010. And would you mind? It looks like you want to discuss a little more about mental health and also using client-centered approaches.
Yeah, for sure. So I usually start off with, hey, what is depression? Right? Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people generally they don't understand what depression is.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I hear from a lot of my clients, oh, I've been feeling like this for a year or 6 months, or even a few years, like 2 to 3 years, they've been feeling like this. But essentially, what depression is usually persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and or a lack of interest in activities that they once enjoyed. Depression can be caused by a multitude of different reasons. It can certainly be from a traumatic experience, a distressing moment in their lives, or sometimes it plays into genetics. So my approach comes from very much a biopsychosocial approach. And so what that means is we take a look at the biological factors or your genetics, any sort of psychological trauma that you've
Mm-hmm.
experienced, and of course the social factors. So environmental, um, kind of cues and factors that, the person is currently living in. Depression can really affect a person's daily life. It can affect them going into work. It can affect just their own like personal daily tasks that they have to get completed. Often we see a decline in hygiene, can see a decline in doing activities that they once enjoyed. And yeah, it's important to recognize some of these symptoms. One of the ways that depression is treated is, of course, through therapeutic intervention. And one of the gold standards is cognitive behavioral therapy. And so, what that means is just taking a look how thoughts, feelings, and actions all interconnect with each other. And a couple of the different techniques. I mean, CBT is very much a program, right? So a couple of the techniques that we usually utilize is a technique called behavioral activation. And so what that really means is focusing on increasing engagement in positive activities to improve mood and alleviate symptoms of depression. The goal of this is to help individuals identify and participate in those activities. So we take a look at setting aside a time, it could be one time a week, twice a week, where that person dedicates that time to those activities themselves. Another way that we help support a person through cognitive behavioral therapy is looking at, negative thought patterns and doing cognitive restructuring as well. So CBT, once again, it's just a very
Cognitive
evidence-based.
behavioral therapy, right? Just to confirm.
Correct. Yes. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah, it's a gold standard. It's very well researched, very evidence-based.
And by the way, I just want to also point out the lines are open if you have any questions. 631-307-4010, 631-307-4010. But you do offer an initial discovery call, right? Like a free 15-minute conversation if they call you directly after the show, too.
Of course, yeah. I like to provide those free consultations. It gives me a better understanding of the needs and goals and what sort of supports that you're looking for. And then, of course, I go into a little bit about my background and how I can best support that individual. This just ensures that we're a good fit for each other.
Great. Well, also, I mean, there's still so much more to the work that you're doing. I'm not sure what else you wanted to cover for today. Since we've talked before, what else do you think? I know you as a personal trainer, right? The power of fitness also goes hand in hand, you say, with mental health. And that's something unique, I think, to you as well.
Yeah, like the importance of fitness, I mean, it's really beneficial for a lot of people, especially too if you're experiencing depression or anxiety. I mean, fitness is a really good way to, you know, have a good positive coping strategy in order to help increase your mood because there's the release of those endorphins, right? And
Yeah.
so by incorporating a good fitness routine, certainly can help alleviate some of those depressive symptoms that somebody is experiencing. The other thing is like with fitness comes nutrition, right? So
Mm-hmm.
having a good, well balanced diet. We've taken a look at how food interacts with the body when somebody is feeling depressed or stressed. And so with that whole process, if you're not feeling too great, your digestive system actually slows down. And so you can't digest food as often, right? Or as well as you are, say, when you're happy or in a good mood, right? So taking the time to recognize, like, hey, do I have depressive symptoms? Am I feeling anxious at all? Am I feeling
Mm-hmm.
stressed out? It comes along with identifying some of those triggers as well. I can certainly go into a little bit about anxiety, right?
Yeah, please. I mean,
Like,
that's
yeah,
that the big word of I wouldn't say the decade of the past 3 years since COVID, right? It's been anxiety. And everyone's like, what? And then everyone realizes, oh, I think all of us have anxiety, but even more so after the pandemic, I'd say it's been quite a popular term, one of the most Googled, I'd say.
Oh gosh, yeah. I would say that's probably one of the most common things that I see right now. People come into my office, they say, Steph, I'm anxious. I don't know where it comes from. I need help and support through this. But the first thing is to talk about what is anxiety. And the thing is that anxiety is actually a very natural human emotion. I mean, if we have a big speech to make, or if we have a major test that we're going to be completing, yeah, we're going to feel a little bit of anxiousness. So, increased heart rate, maybe a little bit of sweaty palms,
Yeah.
those butterflies in your stomach, right? But when anxiety starts to become an issue, is when it starts to affect our daily activities, right? It's important to really seek out support and
Hmm.
help. And that can be through a variety of different methods, right? That could be coming to see a therapist. It could certainly be peer support groups. And it can certainly be kind of communities, on Facebook,
Yeah.
connecting with people who are experiencing similar symptoms. There are a few ways in order to help anxiety for sure.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the thing is people need these coping skills in order to help distract themselves
Yeah.
and of course just get them thinking a little bit in a more positive manner. The best technique and a lot of techniques that therapists often give out is the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique. So that technique is really just to get you grounded in that moment and honestly just make you more aware of your senses and your surroundings. So it first starts off with 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. This is honestly such a great way. I actually get people in my office to take a look at their heart rate, right? So I get them to feel their heart rate and perform this exercise. And after they're done doing this exercise, they notice a dramatic decrease
Oh,
in their heart rate
hold on. We
overall.
have a call coming in. Hold on. Hi, welcome to the show. You are live on the line. Who's this?
Hey, my name is Jason.
Hi, Jason. Just to let you know, you are live here on the line today with our certified counselor. And again, Stephanie's here to take any questions you may have.
Okay, so I've been like, all right, I've been like really upset lately. I just keep feel like I've been getting like hit and hit and hit before I really have like a chance to get up and breathe. And I was just like, what can I do to help my state of mind when I'm getting through these things to help like get back to where I'm at or where I was at, I should say.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's honestly a really, really good question. And, it comes down to, in that moment, trying to find something where you can ground yourself and or distract yourself in that moment because those feelings will eventually pass, right? I mean, a common one is, of course, deep breathing exercises. So there's a terminology called box breathing. And so you can take 4 second deep breath in and then hold for 4 seconds and then 4 seconds out and then hold for 4 seconds. Another favorite one that a lot of my clients really love is this categories exercise. And so it can be choosing 3 categories. So, like movies, TV shows, animals, colors, and then picking 3 of those categories and then listing off as many things in that category as possible. This honestly gives you a chance to just focus in on that activity. And then, of course, it can become a little bit of a game, right? You can also do this anywhere, like if you're out in public, if you're just sitting at home, right? But the best thing for these techniques is to practice these even when you're not feeling anxious, right? Or when you're not feeling those tough emotions. Another one that I'll just mention quickly here is a technique called Socratic questioning.
Hmm.
So what that means is it essentially challenges or helps a person overcome those negative thought patterns by utilizing questions that challenge some of those negative thoughts that might be coming to your head.
Hmm.
So, what evidence do you have for this thought? Is your thought based off of facts or feelings? Um, is that thought based on a bigger picture? Or are you just focusing on the evidence that is presented to you now? So
Or it's
there's a
something
lot.
I can't control and something I can.
Exactly. Yeah. So especially too, like if it's something that you can't control, what is it that you need in that moment to help you reground yourself and just provide yourself with that distraction? Also, too, one of the things that I always like to mention with a lot of my clients is what are some of your triggers? So by identifying some of your triggers,
Hmm.
you might be able to um, help yourself before you get to a point where you are escalated and feeling overly anxious or overwhelmed, right?
Sound
Right.
okay?
Thank you so much. I
And,
mean, that was super helpful. I'm not gonna lie.
aw. And
Oh,
if
you're
you
Especially
wanted
with
to
what I'm
reach,
going through right now.
aw. If
welcome.
you wanted to reach out, could you share your contact information, Stephanie, for us? Thank you.
Yeah, if you'd like to reach out to
Absolutely.
me, yeah. So my email is innerstrengthcw@gmail.com, or you can certainly contact me through my website at innerstrengthcw.com.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
You're
much. Have a good day
welcome.
and best of luck to you.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Y'all have a great day.
You too.
You
All
too.
right. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to call 631-307-4010. And again, we're with innerstrengthcw.com. Stephanie Korchynski is joining us here from Winnipeg. By the way, are you able to work with those outside of Canada as well in the US? Or how does that part work with certification? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, so I'm only able to work with people in Canada and then
Okay.
in specific provinces, but I am also licensed in Ontario. I can also see people in Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, but other provinces have a more uh, kind of robust licensing process where I would
Okay.
have to get licensed in those provinces. But I can certainly answer questions. If people want to send me emails or something or need just a little bit of guidance, I can certainly provide that as well.
Perfect. All right. Well, what else did you want to share for today? We still have 10 minutes left in your show. Just want to
Yeah.
make sure we're covering everything that's important to you and to our
Yeah.
listeners. Yeah, there's a lot to the work that you're doing. And I know there's also art therapy, there's play therapy, we talked a little about CBT, but again, whatever path you want to go down.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, with anxiety, I also like to talk about stress as well, right?
Okay. Yeah,
So
big one.
stress, honestly, yeah, it's a huge thing that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are going through. And we talked about the COVID-19 pandemic
Yeah.
and some of the financial stressors that people have been going through, right? And so the thing is with stress, yeah, it can certainly cause a lot of anxious feelings and certainly more chronic health conditions and stuff like that, right? So it's important to recognize some of the stress factors that might be causing maybe some health conditions or, just causing you not to fully be functional in your daily routine or even in your work life. So stress is a psychological and physiological response in the body. So I think we all know about that pesky little hormone cortisol. If you don't, I mean, when you are feeling stressed out, our body releases a hormone called cortisol. And when we have higher cortisol levels, yeah, we tend to see sort of weight gain or a lack of eating or even emotional eating response. Certainly, it can cause an increased heart rate. It can cause stress and tension in the shoulders and neck. It can cause headaches, right? So it's important to certainly get your stress under management. And certainly, there's a lot of different techniques that people can employ in order to reduce some of their stress. Um, I think self care isn't talked about enough. And this is one of the most important pieces in stress management. So taking a look at things that can honestly help your self-care, do things that you enjoy, physical fitness. I've talked about that quite a bit. Eating regularly, doing things that, you can get out and experience nature, getting sunlight, of course. But there's 5 areas of self-care I think that should be mentioned. And so there's physical self-care, emotional self-care, or psychological self-care, spiritual self-care, social self-care, and of course, professional self-care. And each and every single one of these areas, can certainly provide somebody with help reducing some of those stress related either thoughts or feelings that a person might be experiencing. I think one of the things that we were certainly deprived of, like through the pandemic, was social interactions. So it's important that people start to get out there, connect with people that they like connecting with maybe new people, maybe meeting new people and sharing, similar interests. But also just keeping in touch with old friends or family members that don't live close to you. Certainly an important aspect of, social self-care and being able to create those social connections. So yeah, like in terms of dealing with stress, I mean, there's a lot of different techniques. I mean, meditation and yoga is, of course, a really gold standard in stress management and stress reduction. Um, if you're not a big fan of meditation because you're like, well, Steph, my mind always wanders and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
So I always say to people, you know what, let those thoughts come in, right? And then recognize those thoughts, but then
Hmm.
tune back into your breathing, you know? And meditation can be certainly a powerful, powerful tool just for you to be there
Yeah.
with yourself and to help address some of those thoughts that might be coming in and retaking control of that thought process, right? Because you're like, hey, you know what? These thoughts are in my brain, but you know what? I'm not going to allow them to distract me. I'm going to go back to my 5-minute meditation and refocus in on my breathing. That's another thing is people think that meditation has to be an hour, right? And so even just taking a couple minutes, to yourself, is more than beneficial.
I agree. I know everyone, I do the 5-minute meditation, and, people always like, what? I heard about meditation years ago. I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that. And then I do a meditation in my bed, and it may be like 5 minutes in the morning. That's it. It doesn't need to be lengthy. And that's what always scared me about the word meditation. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners might be saying the same thing. And I'm in bed, with my kids, I'm still sleeping. I'm getting up, they're sleeping, and I'm go through my head and I breathe and I relax. I go through the day. It's my quiet time. I love it. And it's quick. It doesn't have to be more than that. I mean, some people do, but for someone who's like me, no, it doesn't work that way. But I enjoy it.
100%. Yeah. Like I agree with you. Like there's a lot of people who they're like, oh, meditation, I got to be there for an hour. No, that's not the case, right? Like you said, Jill, it's just 5 minutes, just that moment of peace, right? And I encourage people to try it out,
Yeah.
even if you think meditation is not for you. It's certainly very beneficial in stress reduction, depression management, and anxiety management, right?
Hmm. I agree. Well, in our last few minutes together, what else did you want to kind of share for the benefits of our listeners? And I just feel like now of all times around the holidays is very important to raise that awareness for mental health and the fact it's okay to get and seek the help that you need, right? Because I'm assuming this is a very hard time for so many different reasons.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you. Like the holidays are usually the toughest,
Yeah.
right? Especially if you've experienced the loss of a loved one in the past few months, right? Where they're not going to be there for the holidays or financial stresses of the holidays, right? So it's just important to reach out for help, right? If you're struggling, um, just remember you're not alone, right? An important aspect of creating good emotional wellness is finding that support group, right? So reaching out to friends, reaching out to family members. And then, of course, if you absolutely need to, reaching out to mental health therapists to help guide you through some of those things, right? The holidays, and especially too here in Winnipeg, we're quite cold. It gets dark very early in the evenings. So yeah, we don't have a lot of sunlight to get that vitamin D, and when it's minus 40, so that's minus 40 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
I'll let you do the calculation.
I can't. It just,
Into
I'm going to say
Fahrenheit.
cold. Cold.
It gets very cold here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it prevents a lot of people from getting outside and enjoying some of the activities.
Mhm.
So I encourage people, to still find, those enjoyable activities that, you can engage in and still create movement and social interaction and
Yeah.
connection, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, and one of my favorite things is, spending time in nature. We have a lot of beautiful hiking trails here in Manitoba. So I encourage people, even with the snow on the ground, because we do get quite a bit here, still getting out to those hiking spots and enjoying nature. We still have some birds that are hanging around and stuff like that, some animals. I actually have a beautiful hiking trail right by my house where I see like foxes. We get a lot of deer, in and around our houses here. And then, of course, it's something a little more scary, which is coyotes. I'm not going to lie. I have seen a coyote close to my home, and
Wow.
I'm not too far outside of Winnipeg. Yeah. So, I mean,
Amazing.
that's a little bit more scary, but beautiful animals, regardless. And they generally
Well,
don't bug you. So,
well,
but
thank
yeah,
you for being here, Stephanie. Remind us one more time how we can reach you. I apologize. We are out of time.
no worries. So you can certainly reach me at innerstrengthcw.com. So that is my website. There's a contact form on there. Or you can email me at innerstrengthcw@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day. And to all of our listeners, please stay tuned. More of the show is coming up after the break. And thank you to our caller as well. We'll talk soon. Okay. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.